You know, I think it's a bad sign that I was listening to Christmas music when I saw this news. The shocking stuff today, Jaxon Smith-Njigba officially out and declaring for the NFL draft. Now, guys, I honestly assumed that he would be back for this game due to a number of cryptic tweets he put out. Normally, if you're not tweeting like that, or normally if you put out tweets like that, you would theoretically think he would be returning, he'd be coming back. There was also some rumors within Ohio State that he was about a 50-50 chance he'd be back for Michigan, and if he wasn't back for Michigan, he would certainly be back for the playoff, but he has officially declared for the draft. Another thing I was looking at, when it comes to JSN, he's actually been falling in several mock drafts. He's down late first round. I think he's 19th or 20th overall. So I figured maybe he wanted to come back and prove that he was still a top-tier player and possibly a top 10 pick. He still can. I'm sure he'll be healthy for the combine, and it was just the nagging hamstring injury. But this really does hurt Ohio State. You could make the argument, well, you know, they've been playing with the same group forever. You know, JSN really only played a few snaps this season, and you'd be right. The issue is they really haven't been good on offense. I mean, C.J. Stroud did throw for a lot of yards against Michigan, but it wasn't, effective. The third down is still an issue. It just would have been so big to get JSN back in the slot, and now you have Marvin Harrison Jr., JSN, and Emeka Egbuka along with Julian Fleming. Julian Fleming's going to have to really step up against Georgia. He cannot be dropping passes. It's just there's just no way you can win. You have to do everything right against a team like Georgia. So that is the situation there. I guess I'm a little surprised Day didn't at least kind of tell him to wait to let Georgia game plan for him, but I would assume they'd probably be doing the same thing with or without him either way. So it really doesn't matter, but he is out. And just taking a look at when it comes to the two playoff games, we're getting the early data. It's almost like I'm reading exit polls. We're getting the early data, and we've got Georgia right now getting a ton of money, and the line is officially changed to Georgia -7. I don't think the JSN news has much to do with it. It's been like that since this morning. Georgia getting 89% of the money. The line opened -7. It got bet back up to 6.5. Now it's back down to 7 with a lot of money coming in on Georgia. And then the TCU and Michigan line, money coming in on both of those teams. But surprisingly enough, Michigan, believed they opened -9. It went up to 9.5. It's back down to 8. So that line is falling, at least right now. I would assume Michigan fairly comfortably should win that game, but that is an update on all of that. And then this is an interesting hypothetical. I do want to get to some Deion Sanders stuff, but we've got Ohio State fans with TCU Michigan being the early game. We always knew the TCU Michigan game was going to be the early game, let's be honest. But who will you be rooting for, TCU or Michigan? I think it's a no-lose situation for Ohio State. You know, there are a lot of fans that are like, they'd rather beat Michigan than win a national title. I think if you're a fan of any team, the number one goal is to win the national title. But it is polarizing because some people are so obsessed with Michigan, they'd rather beat Michigan than win the title. But I think if you're an Ohio State fan, it's the best of both worlds. You get a rematch with Michigan. It's very hard, for a team like Michigan to beat Ohio State 2 times in the same month. So you possibly get revenge against them and you win, or you get TCU, and I don't want to say it's going to be a cakewalk to the title, but you're going to be a 7 or 8 point favorite in that game. If you beat Georgia, you're going to be at least a touchdown favorite. I actually recently saw hypothetical game lines on a neutral site, and they had Ohio State 2.5 point favorites over Michigan, and people lost it. That was on Twitter. They're like, how is that possible that Ohio State is still favorites over Michigan after Michigan just beat them? Guys, I've been telling people this before. The game was close with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It was a 4 point game. Everyone says they got blown out, No, a blowout is when it's a 3-score game in the first half. That's a blowout. When it's a 4-point game with 13 minutes left, that's really not a blowout. And so, people saying that Michigan would blow out Ohio State again, obviously that's a big hypothetical. I am so excited for the potential my God, you want to talk about good for the Big Ten? After we had that SEC last year where the national championship game is finally in a Big Ten setting. It's in Indianapolis, and it's Alabama, Georgia. Now they can repay it. You certainly would think Michigan's going to beat TCU. It just comes down to Ohio State being able to beat Georgia, and I think they match up well with them. But with JSN out, it does take a little wind out of the sails. You're going to have to reassess the situation when it comes to that game. They certainly still do have the talent to beat Georgia, but they've had the talent all year, right? And it hasn't come to fruition, so we will see. And then the Deion Sanders stuff, oh my goodness. So I don't know what happened exactly with Cincinnati. I know they were contacting Deion Sanders. If I was a Cincinnati fan, I would be so pissed. Because you would think if you're Deion Sanders and Cincinnati is going to the Big 12, Cincinnati is a lot more attractive of a program in terms of the stability, the recent success than Colorado. I almost wonder if Colorado told Deion, you can do whatever you want. Because there is a video of Deion Sanders talking to the Colorado players and saying, listen, most of you got to go hit the portal. I'm bringing in my own team, which, by the way, if you're a Colorado fan, you've got to love that. Colorado was one of probably the worst Power 5 team in the last decade this year. They were 1-11. They have legitimately no players. Deion Sanders in the transfer portal. This is the same thing Lincoln Riley did last year with USC. He's going to completely rebuild the team. He already got a 5-star committed in the 2025 class, which probably won't stick, but it just goes to show you the guy is just ridiculous at recruiting. Ridiculous. And my prediction on Deion Sanders in 2 years is going to get a mega coaching job. And by mega, I don't mean Ole Miss. I don't mean Auburn. I'm talking Alabama when Saban retires, A&M if they want to buy out Jimbo Fisher, or maybe you take a look at Ohio State if Ryan Day loses to Georgia and then loses next year to Michigan. Deion Sanders, the way he recruits, the one thing that Deion does have to realize, you need a good offensive coordinator. Because Deion's more of a CEO of a program. He's really not. You need a good offensive coordinator to get the quarterback commits. But other than that, it's Colorado. Oh my God. This is the perfect situation. Think about Colorado's options. They could get some retread quarterback coach or offensive coordinator from Arizona or offensive coordinator from Oregon or something. This is like literally a dream scenario. Coming off one of your worst year in program history, and you get a guy who's going to bring in 5 stars left and right, and it'll be so interesting to see what the Colorado 2023 recruiting class looks like. It'll be crazy. 1-11, and they're going to bring in probably a top 15 class. And then the transfer portal is just going to be ridiculous. And they've already got, look at this, a source at Colorado tells me over 200 recruits and portal transfers have reached out in the last 12 hours. Some are 4- and 5-star caliber players. Deion Sanders has a chance to make some, I think he's going to make some noise. My goodness. NIL money also rolling in to Boulder. And then Travis Hunter, the number 1 overall player who flipped to Jackson State to follow Deion Sanders last year, says that he will also be coming to Colorado. So the situation is just crazy. It's basically a 1-year rebuild. I'm tempted to include Colorado in my preseason top 25 poll for next year because it's the way it is. We saw Lincoln Riley do it at USC. It's like USC is, a 500 team. There's no way he can turn it around, and they're 1 game away from making the playoffs. So, that is just crazy what's going on there. And again, the transfer portal, I did a video on it. It is, they said it was going to be crazier than last year. And I was like, we'll see. But one day into it, and it's already ridiculous, and there's going to be updates probably daily or at least every other day. And it is unfortunate with the bowl season right now because we're getting, how about Anthony Richardson declaring for the NFL draft? Oh my goodness. If I'm an NFL, nothing against Anthony Richardson, I'm not touching it, man. There's no way. There is no way. I understand, the tools and everything like that, but that dude is like, there's being not ready, and then there's Anthony Richardson. I feel like it's going to take some work. And to me, like a first-round pick, I'm just not interested, man. I am not dealing with that. I think you're going to look at Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, but you know how it is, guys, with the draft. There's going to be hype. There's going to be real big hype, I'm sure, surrounding Anthony Richardson, and he's probably going to get drafted somewhere in the middle of the first round, especially if he's declaring. He's probably going to have really good measurables at the combine and everything, but if you're Florida, that's got to be a gut punch because you're developing him and you're thinking he's going to finally have his breakout year. Well, if he has a breakout year, he's going to be doing it in the NFL. So not only do you get, you have to invest in his development, now you're not even getting rewarded for it if you're Florida. So that's why a lot of look at what Oregon is doing. Oregon brings Bo Nix in for 1 year. He's gone. They're already looking at another 1 year guy. Maybe Hudson Card from Texas, maybe another transfer portal QB. One of their sophomore quarterbacks just went in the portal because they're looking for another quarterback. So it is interesting, guys, and there's a lot of stuff going on right now with the transfer portal, but the big news when it comes to the college football playoff, we've got Jaxon Smith-Njigba. He is out. Ohio State's been without him all season. It's no change there, but it would have been huge for the Buckeyes to have him and really have an elite option in the slot, and that would have been just crazy. They should get Mayan Williams should be healthy. Trevion Henderson, I'm not sure if he's actually even going to be healthy for that game. I mean, he tore ligaments in his foot or something. I thought he had plantar fasciitis, but I don't know. Either way, he will be. Oh yeah, and then I saw this. How about this? Danny Canal. So people were saying this was a troll, and I just think he has no clue what he's talking about. So he says, just an honest question, what do the NIL sources that paid Quinn Ewers to play at Ohio State and Jaxon Smith-Njigba to stay at Ohio State think now? So I think he's assuming that JSN was eligible for the draft last year and some NIL fund paid him to stay at Ohio State for an extra year, when in reality, Smith-Njigba was not eligible. He could not be drafted last year. He had to stay in school for an extra year. It was his third year this year was year number 3 for JSN with Ohio State. So people were saying he was trolling. He just doesn't know what he's talking about, and it's embarrassing, and I feel bad for him. But that is this dude that, he went to Florida State. He's obsessed with the ACC, and the ACC just sucks this year. So I think he's trying to cope with it, and it is sad to see. But either way, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.